Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
I can't do a whole hour, but we can do this.
Well, I got you a whole hour.
No, we can't do this.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do a whole hour, bud.
Are we on the air? Gosh, guys.
He can't do a whole hour.
God,
My
no,
ass.
Man, I'm a mover and a shaker, guys.
Well, we all know that. We all know that.
You guys can sit there and touch each other for an hour. I got things to do.
Wait a minute.
I got things to do.
We're socially distanced from each other, by the way.
I have a feeling
they call him Thursday Busy Jay.
You and I are not socially distanced, Joe.
It's because of you. You keep moving closer to me.
You're like the earth and I'm like the moon.
No. You are a magnet.
Like a poem.
You're a magnet.
I'm romantic. I'm so romantic this morning.
You're a magnet and I'm steel.
What are we doing? Who picked this one anyways? Is this Joe's pick week this week, or did Joe get burned again?
This was really, when we came down to last time, we were like, so it's Joe's turn. He's like, I don't know. So we're like, well, what about I'll Be Gone in the Dark? He's like, okay, well, I'll do that.
No, I said Civil War and you guys didn't want to watch it.
Oh, yeah, because we don't want to watch 50 million hours of Civil War documentary. We don't have time for that. I was watching the new one last night and I was like, God, this is going to get tough, especially if someone comes in here with like a heavy hitter like baseball or Civil War.
Well, that Civil War one, it's
incredible. Don't get me wrong.
Well, they didn't even have movie cameras back then. What are we watching?
God. So our subject of this week's Dark Side of the Stream is the documentary on HBO, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, based off of the book by the late Michelle McNamara about the serial killer, the East Area rapist.
Real quick. When you watch documentary, I'll ask both of you first. What is something you look for, or something you want to you want to get out of it?
A great story, something to grab me.
You, Joe?
I would agree with that 100%. I like something that surprises you too.
Yes, I like when I like it because usually most of these documentaries that I watch, the tale is so unbelievable. If you wrote it, somebody go, oh no, that would never happen. But these things really happen, and then there's a twist. Like what? So that's what I look for in these.
Do you feel like you had a twist in this one?
I feel like this one, two things. I was a little bit let down by this documentary.
Okay.
Just because I was familiar with the story, which a lot of times I don't like to know
Probably
what I'm going to watch.
Probably because I've been throwing it in your face for the last
but also
years.
Because I kind of knew how it was going to play out, so there wasn't a twist. If I would have watched this without knowing the story, I might have got a little bit better out of it. But I also thought they could have done a better job on this documentary.
You think so?
Yeah.
What about you?
I think the true story is better than the documentary.
The way they produced it?
Yeah.
Okay. I totally high school book reported this. I read the first chapter and watched the last chapter. I didn't watch anything in between.
Yeah, the last episode is the best episode out of the series.
And if that's true, then I'm gonna.
You really didn't miss it.
I'm just gonna go that it's not that great.
But the umbrella of the story is amazing.
It is an amazing story.
It's an incredible
this cold
story.
case. This girl devotes her life to writing about this cold case. They reopen, find clues, and anyway, they end up catching. Spoiler alert! They end up catching.
They got the
Golden
guy,
State Killer
and
years later.
Yeah. All right. Well.
And how much do you think? I know that Mike was very passionate yesterday about.
Oh yeah, I'll get into
not
that.
giving her too much credit.
Well, no, I'll give credit where credit's due, and she definitely deserves a lot of
the fact
credit.
She died before
that it was
done,
and all
before
that
he was
stuff.
caught and the book was released.
Yeah.
That's just like what?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
There's a lot to this story, and definitely will tell you my opinions next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
It's an opinion.
Mike, the intern, Joe Weston, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Today it is our next episode of Dark Side of the Stream, where we take a documentary. We'll tell you one that you need to watch at the end of the episode. Watch it so we can all discuss it together, or at least you can listen to us talk about it.
So you don't get spoiler alerts.
So we found out how Joe and Jay felt about the documentary.
I wanted it to be good. I really did, man, because the story's amazing.
This one's very personal for me.
Wait a minute. Let me say this really quickly, too, is you should put a post on Facebook. What did you think about the documentary? And then we can have people continue the discussion with us.
This is how
Joe's
on
such a thinker.
Facebook. He's the idea
Why
man.
is the oldest guy in the room the social media master?
I don't know.
I'm not you're the social media master.
Well,
that's
with
just
low-hanging fruit posts, but yes.
Here we go.
As far as discussions go.
Just because I win the social media posts every week.
He's like the reigning champion by miles.
But wait, this is supposed to be a whole segment of Mike's opinions.
No,
Well, get ready. It's coming right now. Trust
no.
me. It's coming.
This is
What
a
did Mike think of the documentary?
very personal story for me, because years and years ago, and it was probably from Unsolved Mysteries, I was rewatching an episode, and they had started in the late 90s and early 2000s to bring DNA, and I think that's when they did the episode about, at the time they called him the East Area Rapist. Golden State Killer really was something that Michelle McNamara kind of coined when they reopened this later on. But I watch this episode and I start thinking to myself, holy crap, this one guy, 40 rapes, 12 murders. How the hell
Over the course of years and years.
From the mid to late 70s through the 80s, he keeps calling his victims and they don't know who he is. Of all the technology we've got, we don't know who he is. So if anyone would come up to me and we'd start talking about true crime, I'd say, have you ever heard about the EAR? And most of the time, everyone would say no. And this is people that knew a lot about true crime. So for years, I was into this guy, big time, well before anyone had ever heard of Michelle McNamara. And it's not one of those things where I'm sitting there going, I was into it way before it got big. No. I think what Michelle McNamara did was very, very important. It got this case thrown back into the limelight. It got detectives and people more interested in it, and there was a push to get it solved, and inevitably it did get solved. But when you give her that much amount of credit, you're discrediting all the other people that she learned from, the people that helped her work on this thing, the people that were on the internet solving stuff. Yes, she had connections, but you know what? We're not all married to an actor who can allow us to live a lifestyle where we can have a nanny look after our kids, where we can stay up all night researching stuff, where we can use those connections to get the police to give us the records we want. We can't do that. And then on top of the fact, and I know this is going to be a touchy subject for some, I don't know how in the hell Patton could have lived with someone who's literally taking amphetamines all day and then taking downers at night every single day to do the research for this book. Now, it may have affected her bad, and it may have put her in a bad place because she was scared to death of this thing happening to her. But at the same time, I don't know how he could have lived with someone going through that kind of drug abuse. You guys...
Well, the thing that I tell myself the same thing. How can you live with someone and not know that they're doing on drugs like this? But you look at the text messages that they show in the documentary. He's just kissing her ass, brown. Yes, honey. What? Oh, yeah. Okay,
being supportive,
yeah.
but not.
But like over the top, like you could just tell that she ran the show. And he was
of course.
Like,
but also he was able to do his life without any problems from her, and that kind of is the way that compromise
works.
Comedy
and stuff like that.
Let's say a couple things. I want to say a couple things here. First of all, the heroes of this story. I believe there's two, and the first and the biggest are the survivors. The people that survived this, and I thought that they did a really good job of showing these people that are survivors, and a couple of women specifically said he tried to ruin our lives and he didn't, and now his life is ruined, and I thought that was amazing.
They got closure. They got closure at the end.
The other hero in this is Patton Oswalt, because he finished the work that Michelle McNamara started.
Him and Paul, the guy
and he knew that it was her passion and he wanted to finish it. And one of the things that was disconcerting to me about this whole story that I didn't know that much about was that he quickly remarried. I mean, within a couple of years, remarried somebody else. And after I did a little research last night and did a little reading, I think Michelle McNamara had mentally left him quite a while before
this all happened.
Before she died. She had mentally left him and his child.
Yeah.
And I think that he is a brave man to finish her work, carry on her legacy, do that. But I could see that he was a man that maybe he's ready to go on with his life and have somebody in his life that was part of it. But I just feel like that when I read a little more about it, that the documentary romanticized her doggedness when actually she had shut out the people in her life.
Which also makes sense of how you wouldn't know or care if somebody was having a drug problem. If you're tuned out and you're basically
come on to something
you're tuned out and you're tuned out so much where basically, you kind of live together, you raise a kid together, but that's all it is, which is a very common scenario.
That happens,
very common situation.
And that's kind of like the partnership we're in here. Dark Side of the Stream continues next on 104.7 The Cave.
The three-way is good. Like three-way.
Are we still talking about our partnership?
We're like a three-way, but three-way is a good dynamic. Four-way gets a little more complex.
You got too many cooks in the kitchen.
We're like the human caterpillar.
We're a three-way stand-up
and we're
table.
already on the air once again. They get the most random conversations when Mike hits the button without telling us.
Three-way. That's why I like being in.
We need to fix that light that tells us we're on the air. That's what we need to do.
Of radio.
I was taught a long time ago by the guy who taught me how to be a sound engineer was live on that record button. Because all the times that you don't hit it, you're going to want that back. And I was like,
I wish I had a record button on my entire life. Then you'd see the true three-ways.
I know.
I don't know if I want to see that.
4 ways, 5 ways.
I do. I want you to write a book. There's two people that I know that I want to write a book. You and my buddy Michael
I really want
Vincent.
to because I've got tons of crazy stories and I don't want to, A, start to forget them. B, when I die, I would like for people to read and go, wow, he was way more crazy than we thought.
And what would that book be called? I'll be gone in the dark.
Joe. I'm not thinking about that.
Look at me in the light.
He was a man of the people, is what my bass player said he's going to say at my eulogy. So he doesn't get anybody in trouble. He's just going to go, he was a man of the people.
Man of the people. All right. Well, we are discussing I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the 6-part documentary series that we watched on HBO based off the book.
6 parts?
6 parts.
Yeah.
6 parts?
It was an easy watch.
It was drawn out.
Yeah.
And it didn't need to be 6 episodes.
Too long.
And like I said, and I don't want to do this now because the last part of the episode, if you guys are watching this at home, you need to get through it. But really, the payoff is that last episode. And we'll get to that in the last part of this episode. But before we do that, the book itself is good. It's a weird combination of the East Area Rapist story and the investigation kind of muddled with Michelle McNamara's story and her search to find out what was going on. Her involvement. It's not a bad read. If you really, really want to learn about the East Area Rapist investigation, one of the sheriffs from the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department wrote a book years ago, and it's massive. It reads just like a police report, so it's not. Don't expect it to be flashy
like
and gripping. Right? It literally is like reading police reports, but you get a lot of insight into how the investigation was done, how behind they were as far as communications, because in some cases,
what went wrong? Like, how could it not get solved all those years, and then all of a sudden this girl digs up more stuff and kind of gets
first luck. He was extremely lucky.
Yeah.
2, he did not fit the traditional profile of a serial rapist and killer. Most of the time, and he's the exception, but most of the time, serial killers and rapists, they escalate. That, and he did that because at first it started with break-ins, then it started with stealing stuff, then it started with, peeping in windows, then it got up to assaults, and then it led to murder. Most serial killers don't stop. He did for years. It becomes evident why he did it in the last episode of why he stopped and those breaks came. But we don't know that. And we didn't know that. But it always goes back to my theory on these things go, the simplest answer usually is the answer. And in this case, the fact that the guy was literally living in the same area this whole time, that was the simplest answer. And the fact that he ended up being a former police officer makes it even more scary.
Right.
But he was literally right there in front of him. Now, when they had him knocked as a suspect and they wrote him down, guess what was lacking from Michelle McNamara's list of all the suspects she thought it was? His name. She had no idea. Not mentioned once. So that's the crazy thing about all this. Yes, what she did was important, and it got more notoriety, and it got people back into this thing, and they did the reverse DNA search, and they found this jerk after all these years. But the crazy thing is that all that work she did, she wasn't even looking in the right place, which goes you to show that even the detectives had no idea.
At one point, didn't she say that she would think that he had a law enforcement
Could have been a law enforcement, could have been a veteran.
Now, and whose idea was
the
the DNA reverse check? Wasn't that her idea, though?
It was everyone's. I mean, she brought it up, too, but it was always on the mind of law enforcement.
It was kind of headed that way.
The cold case file detective who kind of started this DNA thing in the early 2000s, who worked with her and who became good friends with her, he was at the forefront.
Good-looking dude?
Yeah, good-looking cop. Oh, man, he was a great-looking guy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind being booked by that guy.
Yeah, young guy retired. I wouldn't mind being searched.
I just like making Joe laugh. But yeah, I mean, it could have been anybody, and it's just like you don't want to be the one to say, "Well, it was her idea." Well, it could have been, but I think it was a combined effort. And again, as these things work, and you see these internet detectives working on forums and unsolved mystery forums
Right,
and
it's
all
a
this
cool
stuff.
world. In fact, Flash, that used to work for us, she was deep in that scene. She would go to those websites, she would listen to those podcasts and stuff. I'd hear her listen to weird stuff all the time. Like,
let me ask you this, both of you: what if Michelle McNamara had survived? She hadn't died tragically. Do you think, one, she'd be disappointed with this guy because he's a pathetic old man, is what he is?
No, because she knew that in that final letter she wrote.
knew-
Which
she
that
kinda
final
felt
letter
like
thing
if he
is
was
pretty good.
alive,
The letter to an old man, letter
that's
to
what
an old
he'd be.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
And what do you think her life would be like now? Because her obsession would be...
I think she'd move on to
How
the
do you
next
close
one.
that door?
Move on
I
to
don't
the
know.
next one.
Hopefully she would have got some help for her addiction problems, because let me tell you, and this is a little disclaimer for all you kids out there, I can speak from personal experience. The last thing you want to do is take a bunch of uppers all day and at the end of the day take a downer, because that has killed so
Recipe
many different
to die,
people. It
yeah.
will literally kill you. And if you get to a point in your life where you feel like that's going to keep you going, you need help.
Yeah.
Whether it's drink, pills, smoking,
Anything,
whatever it is.
yeah. Not a
if
good combo.
I'm not talking about medication that you need to survive.
And we're not talking about recreational drugs.
Stuff, mood stuff or cholesterol medicine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about amphetamines and benzos to make you equal out. There's an issue there.
Yeah.
And that can't be argued. And
Not a good plan.
it's a recipe for disaster. How the hell she got a doctor to prescribe that stuff? Who knows? It's Hollywood.
You get a doctor to prescribe anything.
Yeah,
Really?
you can really
Yes,
get
you
anything.
can.
Man.
Yeah.
And I think one of us in this room knows that.
Yeah, probably.
Hey.
We all start looking at each other. On that note, all right.
It turned into Reservoir Dogs.
Exciting
All of a sudden.
conclusion on the way next.
Yes, 104.7 The Cave.
Well, he was in love with Alan McGraw.
At the time, Steve McQueen was like the dude.
The
Steve
man.
McQueen is still the dude.
The dude.
Dead.
But he's
Steve
one
McQueen-
of the dudes.
Steve McQueen is still the dude.
There are a lot of dudes.
What do you think
Clint
is- what do you-
Eastwood,
what do you
Clint
think is
Eastwood
Steve-
is my dude.
Eh.
Come
Well, I
on.
think it's Steve McQueen. Good name.
Have you ever know
Cool
Steve
name.
McQueen is?
Car driver guy
Car
movies,
guy?
something like that. Yeah.
You know
He's a
who Clint Eastwood
man's
is.
man.
Clint Eastwood, I know who that is.
Okay.
Yes.
You say your dude is Steve McQueen?
Steve McQueen, yeah.
I think
is-
Clint Eastwood for me.
For what do we got? What are
Just
we
the
talking
dude.
about?
The dude.
Just who's
Yeah,
the dude?
John Wayne. Pick who you
Bon
want.
Jovi, right?
No, we'll stay in
No,
film. We'll stay in
let's
film. We'll stay in film.
Who's the dude in film?
Yeah.
Oh man, like the man.
You're a man,
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh, guys.
You look like a Bruce Willis guy to me.
No.
He likes him bald and clean shaven.
No, who's the man? Roger Moore. Whoa,
that guy is the Bond. Oh my God, Roger Moore is even the best Bond.
Roger
Get over-
Moore,
oh my
the best
God, we're gonna
Bond.
do-
Well,
we're
the
gonna-
best Bond.
That's
by
for
far.
another episode.
Oh, my
man.
gosh. You know,
What
they
the
used
hell?
to
What
stunt
kind of
double
pig
during
is
the
that?
walking scenes for Roger
Jeez
Moore.
Louise. Opinions, everyone's got them. So we are discussing I'll Be Gone in the Dark today.
Dark Side of the Stream.
Dark Side of the Stream. We've
There's
kind of
exciting
gone through
conclusion.
the
There's a conclusion.
conclusion. Now, as I mentioned, and Joe kind of alluded to at the beginning, he did the high school report, beginning and end on this. And, you know, it was 6 weeks of episodes, and all this time, the investigation for the East Area Rapist, Gold State Killer, whatever you want to call him, there were two things that I was very, very interested in finding out. In some of the reports, the victim said that this guy would like be in the corner crying out the name Bonnie.
Yeah,
Who the
that was
hell
a clue.
Bonnie?
Right. That was a
Right.
clue.
In all these years, I didn't know. Investigators didn't know because how
Yeah.
many Bonnies are out there, right? It was just a needle in a haystack. Episode 6 starts out with a woman talking about a relationship she had when she was in high school with a guy who was a little on the edge. And at a certain point, she felt like it wasn't. I guess he'd asked her to marry him, and she was kind of like, I don't know. I'm in high school, but this was like 50s, 60s, whatever. And I think at one point she kind of just tried to break it off. She said one night she wakes up, the gun in her face, and the guy says, "Get in the car. We're going to Reno."
Yeah, we're gonna get married.
And she's like, "Oh my God." She runs back into the house, yells for her dad. Dad says, "Hold on, go in the bathroom. Don't leave till I get you."
Right.
He's gone for 2 hours, comes back and says, "Go to your room." Doesn't say a word about what they talk about.
He won't
Ladies and
bother you
gentlemen,
again.
that's Bonnie.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he wanted to cheat off some of her tests, and she did not feel right about it. And he got really adamant about it. And that was the point when she said, this is kind of toxic, and I don't think that this
Smart girl.
should move forward. But that woman's not to be blamed for the choices that this man made. I mean,
Absolutely
there's
not.
several things that happened in this man.
There's
There's several things that happened in this man's life. I mean, he watched when he was young. He watched his sister being raped.
Yeah, that whole story was incredible.
And that story is incredible. But
when you meet the family, and that's the thing about this too, is, I mean, there are a lot that obviously his victims, but then you got his family who, I mean, they're victims in their own right, because all of them were sitting there going,
their
we
uncle?
had no
Yeah,
idea.
Uncle
He was
Steve
the
or
coolest
whatever.
uncle. We
Wow,
would have
man.
never guessed, except for the one nephew who said, back when this was going on, I have a vivid memory as a child of waking up to a guy in my room with a ski mask on, and I look and it's Uncle Joe, and he goes, go back to sleep. And all these years later, I'm sitting here thinking I could have stopped this if I would have known, but how would he have known?
Yeah.
and he was using their house as kind of a safe haven.
And they were right there in the middle of it.
I know,
Yeah.
dude. That was part of
That's
the
super
slickness,
creepy.
you know?
The other thing that was unbelievable was there was a break. It was like 81 to 86 where there was no attacks, right? And we were always like, well, what happened? Did he go overseas? Did he get arrested? Well, if he
Right.
was in the system, they'd have his DNA. They'd know. But he wasn't. What had happened was, I guess there was a distant relative
Niece or
that had a
something,
little
right?
girl that something had happened with, and they basically said, can you take her on and live with, can she live with you? And she was on camera and saying, I had no idea. And guess when she was living with him? 81 to
When he
86.
stopped.
When this stopped. And
So
while he was still
crazy.
calling the victims, there's a victim call where you can hear a girl talking in the background, and all of us thought, that had heard it a million times, that it was TV or something. That was the girl in the background.
yeah.
And that just, I mean, goosebumps,
Crazy.
because you're just like, holy, this stuff is right in front of us the
Yeah.
whole time.
Crazy stuff. It's an amazing story.
Oh, man.
The story is amazing. The documentary wasn't as amazing, but check it out. It's
definitely
better
worth
than
the
real
time.
life. It's
if you are
incredible story,
if
man.
you're into true crime, definitely give the book a read or watch the documentary if you don't want to do it. Again, if you know and you're familiar with the story, you want to just do what Joe did, skip to episode 6 so you can get the final payoff. That's just as well.
It's self-indulgent as
One
far
and
as
six.
documentary
Yeah, one
goes.
and
It's
six.
too
Very
long.
much so.
And it's
So-
probably just the simple fact that HBO pulled up to the lady that made it and said, here's a pile of cash. And she wanted to tell this story. And,
Yeah,
it's kind of the opposite of what we talked about last week with the mob documentary, because I felt like the mob documentary,
They didn't do enough.
Left
they didn't
you
do enough.
wanting
And this
more,
one was
okay.
like, is it over yet? Is
Right.
it done? I
Yeah.
watched it with my wife, and she like looked at it and goes,
all right.
are we done with this?
So, what is the next week's homework assignment for everybody to watch?
Well, I guess it's my turn now. So,
Well, there's disclaimer.
well,
There's a little
Asterisk.
controversy.
There's an asterisk on
controversy
whose turn it
because
is.
someone
There's an
felt like
asterisk, but-
his turn got taken. But again, in a democracy, if you don't vote, you don't get to complain.
Okay, it's all right. I'm over it.
He's
now.
already ready for his next pick.
All
So
right.
it's my turn next week, and I am a big fan of the show Narcos on Netflix.
Okay.
And there was a documentary they just put out on Amazon Prime called The Last Narc. And it involves all of the players in the Kiki Camarena
Perfect. I love
murder
it. I
and
love it.
kidnapping and some of the
Last
state
Narc?
police. Oh, dude, it's unbelievable.
That's the
I
name
stayed
of
up
it?
till
The
like
name of it is
10:30.
The Last Narc?
Last Narc.
Okay.
4
All right.
episodes.
Okay.
Real quick.
All right, we're
It'll
in.
get you in. I mean,
I'm
from
in.
the get-go, you want to
Yeah,
twist.
I like those.
This
Oh,
will
really?
grab you by the cojones, and
I
you ain't
love
going to be
that.
able to let go, buddy.
I love the cajone grab.
Crazy story. So, all those victims from the East Area Rapist, our heart goes out to you. Michelle McNamara, your family. It's a horrific thing what happened, and obviously, if you are dealing with any kind of stuff, seek help. That's really the message I want to get across, whether it's psychological or dependency, whatever it is. There's someone that can help you, even if it's just calling us in the
Yeah,
studio while we're
exactly.
here.
Absolutely.
We're here.
Absolutely.
Send us an email message. You're not alone. You're never alone. And guys, I'll see you next week. Dark Side of the
Peace
Street.
out.
That's the biggest mistake people can make, is to feel like they're alone.
You're right. And don't do that.